All right. As we know, Election Day is tomorrow, and a new poll finds the president has some ground to make up in the next 24 hours. According to a new NBC Wall Street Journal poll, the president is trailing Joe Biden by 10 points nationally. Is that the case on the ground? Joining us to discuss is Justin Sayfie, a partner at Ballard Partners and former policy advisor to Governor Jeb Bush. Hey, Justin, good to see you here. More recently, I want to get to this other poll because a different one has Trump trailing Joe Biden by 8 points nationally. So still behind, but gaining some ground. What do you make of these national polls and what appears to be potentially the president's somewhat slight rise in popularity?
Right. The race has been consistent on these national polls for many months. They've all showed Biden ahead by nationally anywhere from 6 to 8 points. But as we saw last 4 years ago with the Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump race, those national polls don't ultimately decide who the president is. So I've been trying to look at the state-by-state analysis to see how the electoral college map looks for each of these candidates. But certainly, it's on one hand not good news for the president to be behind in these polls. On the other hand, he was behind in the polls 4 years ago, and he's the president of the United States. So we have to take those with a little bit of a grain of salt.
I know. If you look back to 4 years ago today, the polls look quite similar. So it will be interesting to see the final election result. Going to your point, you're again looking at those states, looking at those electoral college votes. Which states do you think will be the most challenging for the president in the next 24 hours?
Well, my home state of Florida, largest battleground state in the country, 29 electoral votes. As you mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the early voting turnout by Republicans broke records in the state. They're roughly about the same point now before Election Day as they were 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, Republicans gained about 360,000 votes on Election Day, which is more than the 90,000 votes they're ahead, or at least in terms of voters who have cast ballots by Democrats right now. The other states are Pennsylvania, I'm looking at very closely. Arizona is also an important state. I think those three states are the ones I'm going to be paying attention to mostly on election night or the day after.
Okay, key battleground states there. Let's talk about, again, in this final stretch, we know how important money is to all campaigns, fundraising efforts as well. Joe Biden has said that the president gets all of his money from big donors. Here's what he posted on Twitter. I'll show you this. Donald Trump sees the world from Park Avenue. I see it from where I come from, Scranton, Pennsylvania. It's why I'll fight every day as president to make this country work for middle class and low-income Americans, not just the wealthy and well-connected. Meantime, as we know, the Democratic presidential nominee has raised more money from Wall Street than President Trump. So what do you make of this statement here and where these donations are all coming from?
Well, one thing is that that's just Joe Biden trying to be on message and trying to portray Trump as some Wall Street person. But, the reason President Trump's in the White House is because he was able to connect with people who weren't on Wall Street, who were on Main Street. So this is kind of the battle that's going on. But President Trump in 2016 raised most of his money. I've actually done an analysis on this. He's raised most of his money in 2016 in small contributions under $200. And clearly a lot of that money is coming in off the internet. And he's raised, I don't know if it's been most of it this year, but he's raised a lot of money from small donors this year, as has Biden. So I think that's just political rhetoric from Joe Biden.
Okay, got about 30 seconds left. Talk to me about crowd size that we see for these rallies. Again, huge turnout for the president. Joe Biden doesn't host as many, and when he does, he just doesn't have the numbers compared to the president. How much can we read into this in regards to, how we could see this turnout in the polls?
Sure. I think just briefly, this is something we've really never seen before, where you have a candidate that's able, even in the midst of a pandemic, to turn out these large crowds. It shows that the president's base of support is still fervent and enthusiastic about him. I think these images on television will help him on Election Day, get some additional voters to come out and vote for him. So overall, it's a net positive for him.
All right. No one in those crowds are being silent. They are shouting out for the president there. All right. Justin Sayfie joining us live this morning. Justin, thank you very much.
Thanks, so.